Everybody, how's it going? Welcome along to WD18, the Watford fan channel. Welcome to our one loan signing for Watford from every Premier League club this summer. We can pray. I'm joined by Sam, Ucko, Charlie Zazzera, and myself, Jacob Culshaw, to go through all 20 clubs. We picked one player each. We've kind of been divided 6-6 and 7 or 7-7 and 6 clubs to pick from. We're going to go through, pick a player. We'd like you to get involved in the live chat in the comment section, who you think are the best shouts, who you think are the worst shouts, and also any shouts we might have missed, because we want to hear from you, as we always do on WD18. Sam, Ucko, my man, I wanted to ask you about pre-season, because you're following this pre-season like it's a European tour, home and away, and you've gone to Stevenage, you've gone to Boreham Wood, you ended up in Gillingham at the weekends, and fair play to all the Gillingham, all the Watford fans who went to Gillingham. And if you haven't seen Sam's reel from the match day, make sure you go and check it out. Sam, I wanted to touch on first off that stand at Gillingham.
Oh my word! Probably one of the most unique stadiums I've been to. I actually really liked it. A lot bigger than I thought it was going to be. But basically, walking into the stadium, the stand to the left of us it must have been like being rebuilt or refurbished, because underneath it was literally just scaffolding, and I've never seen something like that before, just walking into a stadium, and it was like walking onto a building site. But that's the beauty of pre-season, I suppose. And along with that as well is, well, I would say the load of transfer rumours, but they've all been a bit negative for Watford. What I would say, and what a nice thing is, last time we did this sort of video, we only did 19 Premier League teams because we left out Luton, but they're back with us in the Championship now.
Cannot wait. Charlie, I'm really looking forward to this video today. It's one of those that we look forward to every time we've done it. I think we've done it 2 years running now, where we picked the player to sign from a Premier League club. I guess the reason this is also more relevant than ever, Charlie, is the fact that Sam L mentions it here in the comment section. It will be interesting to see how many of these come to fruition, with Tom cleverly hinting at us looking at loaning in players from the top half of the Prem team. So how confident would you be of any of your shouts coming through this summer?
Oh, if we can nick one, that'd be nice, wouldn't it? We could we could get the trumpet out for that. I think Tom made it clear quite early on about kind of being creative in the market, using his contacts, and going out and using the loan market, really. I think he said a couple of weeks ago that we were close to a couple which haven't happened yet. And I've just been kind of the view that it's all down to kind of, one, the international tournaments with the Euros and the Copa America. So still loads of players aren't with their clubs. And two, everyone's just waiting for the Premier League to decide what they're doing with their squad to allow transfers to happen. I did actually just want to quickly bring up a graphic, because I know there's kind of a lot being said about Watford having spent money and stuff. But I actually found it interesting that only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams have brought in more players than us. So it's not just us who's not spending; it's loads of teams who are not spending. I do think there's probably a caveat to us, because we're one of the teams that need to bring in more players than others. But I just think it goes to show the landscape and the situation. So hopefully we're going to name some good loan signings who are going to sort us out a good season this year.
For sure. Before we get into that, make sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe to WD18, follow Sam, Charlie, and myself on our social channels, and WD18 at WD18 fans for all the content for the 24-25 season. Lads, I wanted to ask you, I wasn't at Gillingham at the weekend. I was in Scotland. I missed an absolute classic, Tikvich taking on the whole of the Gillingham squad. But Sam, what was your sort of top line takeaway from that game in pre-season?
What to say, Jacob? 3 days early for Scotland, weren't you? That's Hibs coming up on Wednesday. Buzzing for that one. I'd say probably Gillingham was the weakest of the 3 pre-season games so far. And it was a game where I think the holes in this Watford squad and this Watford team became more apparent. I think the reason for that now is teams have almost two more weeks in their legs than they did in the Stevenage game and the Boreham Wood game. And as opposition are getting fitter, they're getting better as well. And that's exposing Watford in many ways. I think the big positive, and a lot of Watford fans said this around me, the formation is really clear, and Watford's attacking build-up is great. Like, we look really, really exciting going forward, particularly Tikvik. I think he Vata looks really, really good going forward. Quadrabal is a bit quieter, but again, he looks quite exciting. And we seem to get the ball into really good areas. It's just the two problems at the moment, like last season, where there's absolutely no one to score the chances that we do create. And secondly, we just switch off at the back. The 2 goals we conceded were really poor. I thought Dan Backman could have done better with the second one. I thought the whole defence could have done better with both goals, particularly Tikvik, who we signed today. I thought was an absolute shambles for that second goal. But I think what's become clear is the holes in this Watford squad. And ultimately, as good as Tom Cleverley might be tactically, he's not going to be able to do anything without signings.
Charlie, anything you learned from that one? You watched it?
I thought you were spot on in the early stages of what I watched the other day. Like when you saw the shape and how we were building up, it looked promising. Just looks like the minute we got it to like the final third, and we just don't have the facilities to do that. We don't have the players to do it. So I took that as a positive in terms of they're listening and they're taking in Tom's kind of messages and how he wants to play. So look, it's been a lot of noise at the moment. Let's just keep our head down. Let's wait until we've seen kind of the first couple of games, wait until the window. There's still a lot of time left. But yeah, the second half wasn't great the other day, but I thought, like Sam said, the style of play looks quite exciting. And if it comes off, it could be a good watch. But I also think defensively and in transition, we could be a bit exposed. So hopefully we get some mobile defenders on this list that we talk about today.
100%. That's something I wanted to pick up on as well. Close to the season, I'm sure we'll do a bit more of a breakdown of tactically what we've seen. But in transition, the fullbacks, because the 2 10s behind the striker are getting so narrow, it's the fullbacks drop to stretch the pitch, and particularly Ryan Andrews was getting really high up and into some good attacking positions. Problem is, at that point when we give the ball away, is that Gillingham had so much space in behind to attack, and I think that cost us, particularly with the second goal when it was about 5 Gillingham attackers just against Tikvik, who was track backing.
There was a lot of noise, as Charlie mentioned, Sam, about what's going on off the pitch at Watford at the moment in terms of the transfer business, or maybe lack of it in certain areas. And I'm sure we'll get on some names that probably fill those voids at this moment in time for Watford. One man there's a lot of noise around at this moment in time is Wesley Hoot, the club captain. It looked like he was off to Trabzonspor in Turkey. That's still kind of going on in the background. It feels like there's talks between Trabzonspor and Watford over the fee, whether Hoot wants to move, whether he doesn't. There was a really interesting angle, I thought, from Jordan, a friend of the channel, Watford Analytics, who basically touched on the fact that this could be agent talk, because we're seeing it a lot in the Turkish press at this moment in time, whether Hoot's going to leave Watford. And he said, one thing I've not really seen being considered about Wesley Hoot, there could be some really strong agent work to get better terms on a new contract. We know there's been one offered. Entirely possible we get a new contract announcement video in the next few days. How much do you buy that point of view on this one?
I think it's a bit too, I don't know. I think, like I said the other day on the channel, I can understand why Wesley Hoot would want to leave. And I think it's very much a 50-50 situation. I can see what Jordan means, but I can also understand the rumours. And particularly with the sounds coming out that it wasn't just Trabzonspor interested in Wesley Hoot, is really, really close. The player wants to move, that sort of thing. And that gets me a bit more concerned and optimistic that he might sign a new contract. Like I said on our video last week, I think Hoot's probably been given an ultimatum. It's either sign the deal or we're going to sell you. I don't think they're going to let him see it out for another year. But something else that Lou Orns, another friend of the channel, that he put out earlier in a reply to someone was that seemingly there are some personal complications and Hoot isn't 100% sure if he wants to leave Watford. I think his wife wasn't too keen on the move to Turkey either. So
he loves Wenzels is a rumour.
He loves the Wenzels. He loves Greggs. He loves the pond in town. So yeah, look, I think there are a lot of spinning plates with this one, and it might go on for the next few days still.
He screams a bit of Potwell for me, Wesley Hoot, to be fair. Ray Badrick as well also said, what do you think about the rumours about Pollock? Sam, I'll throw this one over to you because obviously you know Matty pretty well. Obviously, you won't have asked him about this, but there were some rumours flying around that Sivasspor in Turkey, in the top division in Turkey, similar to Trabzonspor, are interested in Matty Pollock, and that's one to keep an eye on. Does that make less sense or more sense than Hoot leaving, do you think?
I don't think it's comparable situations, to be honest, in terms of what makes more or less sense, because Hoot's got a year left on his deal. But yeah, I wouldn't let Pollock go. I think we're seeing that he's developing quite nicely. We know he is limited with what he can do, particularly with his pace. I think as a defender, he's definitely come miles on leaps and bounds from what he was in his almost nightmare debut against Millwall. But what I would say, again pointed out by Lou Orns, is the Turkish club who supposedly are in talks with him, Matty has followed a few of their players and their club officials on Instagram. So it could be one to watch out for over the next few days as well.
The captain's armband looks good on him the other day, I thought.
I actually didn't think it did, because he did this thing. It's a pet peeve in football. Not that I didn't want Matty as the captain. He had it underneath the top so you couldn't see it. I was thinking, Matty, come on. Bit of pride for the armband, please. But I was delighted to see him get on.
This is the sort of content, if you miss the game, you're getting how Matty Pollock wear the captain's armband. Charlie, before we move on to sort of the main thing around this video, which we always do this at the start of the show, we go for 10 minutes talking about everything Bowl we're actually supposed to be talking about. What's one thing you want to see before the end of pre-season, Charlie?
I want to see everyone that travels to Edinburgh on Wednesday singing, do you have to rock a batter? You know I'm such a fool for you. You got me wrapped around your finger. Do you have to rock a batter? Connor, who tweeted that with his mates, that is a superb chant. Original, love it. So everyone who's going to Hibs, make sure you're singing that around in Hibs Pop World. Yeah, love that from the people who did that from the week. Let's get that ringing around Vicarage Road this season. Who's
going Hibernian this week? I can't make it, unfortunately.
I will be there. Me,
Sean. He will be there. Does a postman deliver? Does he celebrate delivering the post? No, he doesn't. Sam will be there, as he always.
Yeah, listen, it's nothing to be impressed about. It's just my job, to be honest with you. Yeah, me, Sean, Kiva, Harry Welch, we're all going to be there. Looking forward to both a nice day and a nice night out in Hibernian, and Edinburgh as well.
You are the Watford postman, Sam. You always deliver. But anyway, we move on. One loan signing for Watford from every Premier League club. Okay, I'm going to kick it off. We're going to do it in alphabetical order. Charlie, did we have a list, or are we just literally just going to fire them off as we go?
Alphabetical order. Do you have the list?
I've got my own list.
All right, let me ping this over while you talk about your first man.
Okay, so my first man is at Arsenal, and I think the one thing you'd say is, as we mentioned at the top of the show, in terms of loan signings, you're going to look at some of the younger players, particularly at the big six teams. And Ethan Nwaneri, the central midfielder at Arsenal, is going to be a special player. I spoke to a couple of people, including Harry Simew, shout out to him, Chronicles of a Gooner, when I was putting this list together, and I was basically saying, like, look, how good is this guy? Because he's the youngest player ever to make a Premier League debut at 15 and 181 days. He was in the FA Youth Cup team for Arsenal that beat Watford actually a couple of seasons back. But I think the main thing to say about him is he's more of an attacking midfielder. He can play a little bit further forward. He can play a little bit deeper, I think, if I remember that Youth Cup game as well. But in terms of his ceiling, I think you ask any Arsenal fans and they see a real bright future for him at Arsenal. Came through Hale End Academy as well. Granted, haven't watched loads and loads and loads of him. I must caveat that with all my shouts. But what I have seen from him and what I've heard about him, and you always have to trust the other fans of the clubs that are watching these guys week in, week out. At 17 years old, he'd be a really clever signing for Watford. And I think also the fact is, with their training ground next door to Watford, and reportedly Watford and Arsenal trying to get a bit of a relationship going with each other. I think it was documented a couple of years back with Edu, who's the technical director at Arsenal, and his son is the only sort of player we've actually seen from the Arsenal-Watford relationship. So I'm not sure if that really has developed since then, but if we are looking to explore that relationship, I think he's one that I'd be looking at, and I'm sure a number of championship teams, I'd even go as far to say maybe even a bottom Premier League club would probably be looking at, because he's got such a high ceiling. The other one I wanted to mention was Miles Lewis-Skelly as well. He's another 17-year-old that's come through at Arsenal, and he can also play. He's a bit more of a defensive player to Nwaneri, but I think the main thing to say about Lewis-Skelly is he's someone that I would definitely take as well. So yeah, I was only supposed to pick one, but that's another shout as well. So that's to kick it off with Arsenal. We move on to the next name. Who is Charlie or Sam? Hit me.
Aston Villa.
Yeah, I was going to say it was either going to be AFC Bournemouth or Aston Villa. Not sure which way we're going. Yeah, I've gone with Courtney Hawes from Aston Villa. I've gone no, but seriously.
Mate, what has happened pre-show? You're an absolute smoke.
Oh, Jacob, honestly, it's just good to be back, I suppose. I've gone with Lewis Dobbin. He's a player who I think was part of. There are so many moving parts in the Premier League this summer with the profit and sustainability rules, and almost clubs finding loopholes, selling academy players for big money to other clubs, just to make sure that they escape punishment. And one of them, I think, was Lewis Dobbin, going from Everton to Aston Villa. He hasn't played too many senior games in his career. He is only 21 years old and has EFL experience at Derby, where he played in the 22-23 season. He's also played in the senior team for Everton. He's someone with, supposedly, he was really rated by Everton fans. He's got a lot of potential, has played in the England setup as well, across from the under-16s to the under-19s. I think he's relatively quick. I think he's got a very similar build to Cameron Archer from somewhere I read as well. So I think he's someone potentially could be a good option for us to have. And so I'm not sure if he'd solve our striking problems, but it could be an upgrade on Bayo and Rajovic.
I think he popped up in our last. We did one realistic signing, and I think I had Everton. I said the same for Lewis Dobbin as well. Lewis Dobbin, rather, Sam. So I think he's one that it would make a lot of sense. Jack does say love the new wallpaper this season. As if you're listening on audio, we have got a new logo. We've got a new background. I hope you enjoy it. Shout out to Charlie for organising it. It looks top drawer. We move on, Charlie. So we've had the first two clubs. Now it's time for Bournemouth.
Yeah, just before, I just wanted to mention Nawari. If we get him from Arsenal, he is special. When he was playing for the England under-17s, him and Mikey Moore's getting a lot of love from Tottenham. I don't know if he's going to pop up later, but yeah, especially if Asprilla goes, having Nawari there and giving him a full season before he explodes would be unbelievable. Anyway, Bournemouth. When I first looked at Bournemouth, I was looking at another kind of potential 10 left-footed, maybe a Yasser Asprilla replacement if he did go. And I first looked at David Brooks. However, he got injured in the playoff final, I think. So he's just had shoulder surgery. So I don't think that's too realistic. He's not going to be playing anytime soon. So especially looking at our back line on Saturday, I've gone for a defender, James Hill. He's a 22-year-old centre half. He did go on loan at Blackburn at the first half of last season. Blackburn fans absolutely loved him and said he was one of the main reasons they went downhill when Bournemouth recalled him. When Bournemouth did recall him, he was kind of in the squad a lot of times. He made some sub appearances, but he's also had a previous spell at Hearts. I think Bournemouth bought him for $1 million from Fleetwood a couple of years ago. Really good passer. He's got very high interception clearances, aerial duel stats, so reads the game really, really well. If we wanted someone to come in and kind of beef up our defence, I think he would be a starter for us. So James Hill, I think, would be a good option. We've got Tikvik in today, who's left-footed. I've been trying to look for left-footed centre-halves a lot, but James is a right-footed centre-half. But I still think, I'm not sure. It'd be interesting in the comments. Anyone knows how many loans we can get in now? But I do think it'd be great to bring in another loan defender if we've got enough room, because I think that area we need strengthening.
What did you lads make of Tikvik joining Watford? Because I've seen a lot of negative reaction to this one. And despite him being 20, despite him coming from Udinese, left-footed, as Charlie mentioned, 6'5", big presence. A lot of people, Sam, from what they've seen in pre-season so far, aren't a huge fan. Granted, he was on trial really at the time as well. It does feel a little bit like with him that maybe it's putting two and two together, but it feels like we got him in case Hoot leaves.
Yeah, my big problem is I think if Hoot leaves, he's probably going to start because of how limited we are with funds, it seems. I think he seems quite limited, to be honest with you. I think he reminded me a bit of Porteous with the way that sometimes he can step out and almost cost the rest of the backline and leave the rest of the backline exposed. He doesn't seem the quickest either. And his one-on-one defending, as we saw with that second goal, I know you can't really judge him off that, but by that, it suggested that he's not the best one-on-one defender. It is a huge downgrade on Hoot from what I've seen so far. Just doesn't have that presence at all. And while he's quite tall, I think he still lacks it a bit physically. So, yeah, another left-footed centre-half is needed.
I do think we need to give him a chance, though. Like, people have absolutely people have written him off after one game, one couple of preseason games. So let's give the lad a chance. But you say he's only 20 as well.
20 years old. I mean, he actually played a game under Thomas Tuchel at Bayern Munich, even though he played for the second team. I think it was in the Audi Cup. And as Jake says in the comment section, Tikvic seems to be one that we've wanted for a while. It was rumoured that we were trying to go for him back in January, if I remember correctly. That didn't come to pass. So he's come in this summer after having a short kind of trial period. I guess the one thing from my end, I would say I'm totally agree with Sam from what I saw, and I totally agree with Charlie on sort of I'm not going to rule a player out as with all the signings actually until we get into I think really until about 5-10 games into the season can you really start to make a judgment on a player. But I guess the one thing I would say on this deal actually away from the player that I don't really think it makes sense as a season-long loan, because I think at 20 you're better off signing him permanently and then keeping him for the long-term factor, if that makes sense, and developing him, rather than if you're getting someone on a loan. I kind of feel like they need to be at a certain level when they're coming in, if that makes sense, to ready to have an immediate impact. And that's the one thing I would probably say about all the names we're putting out here. You kind of want someone, yes, there's the element of they are young, so they're here to develop as well. But there has to be a certain level of quality, hopefully, from Tikvic that he comes in and makes the spot his own. I'm just a little bit worried that he's going to be a Hoot replacement. Hopefully he's not, and we have both of them. But I think it'd probably be a bit of heavy lifting on Tikvic to say, look, Hoot's gone out, our club captain, and you're going to have to come in as our left-footed centre-back. We'll have to see how that one develops. Anyway, we move on to Brentford. And this was actually one of the toughest ones, if not the toughest, to pick out, because Brentford in the main squad aren't really blessed with players, I think, that we could probably nab on a loan. So I actually looked into the B team because they had a couple of players that had played quite well in League One last season. And the one that stood out to me was Paris Magoma, who was on loan at Bolton last season and had a really good season. He was on loan. He's 23 years of age. Sorry, can play central midfield, can play attacking midfield as well. He's looking for another loan move, so I think in terms of that, Watford would make a lot of sense. I'm not gonna lie, I haven't seen loads of him, but out of all the ones, really, I was pressed to find one. I have to admit this was a tough one, unless someone can throw another suggestion in the comment section. Paris Magoma was the one that stood out of all of the options at Brentford. But yeah, whether that happens is unlikely. We move on, Sam, to the next name, and that's at Brighton. And you cannot ask for João Pedro to come back.
Oh, you read my mind, Jacob. Yeah, it's quite an ambitious one. I think a few of mine are quite ambitious. But a lot of these Premier League clubs, their squads are almost quite tight, and I think Brighton are one of them. The name I've gone for is someone who's on loan at two clubs last season in the Championship, which was Jeremy Sarmiento. I was speaking to a Brighton fan, and while he did really, really well at Ipswich in particular, I don't think he really lit it up at West Brom, but he was crucial in the second half of the season for Ipswich. A couple of Brighton fans have said that he could benefit from another season in the Championship just to develop a bit more, particularly physically. He's currently or just finished playing in the Copa America, where he scored one goal for Ecuador as well. And he just seems to be a really fun player to watch. He's someone who can play off the left, which is an area that Watford really need working on, both attacking and defending. I'm not too sure how he'd fit into the shape unless it was just off the striker in that almost number 10 role that we spoke about earlier in the stream. But yeah, I think it would be quite a fun one, albeit probably a bit unlikely.
Like it. Had a spell at West Brom, didn't he? And then at Ipswich last season, scored a great goal. I think the goal that I think a lot of Ipswich fans look at Portman Road, where it's an absolute delirium. And felt like the moment, that every team has a moment. For us, it was Brighton away. That felt like for Ipswich the moment where they were going to go up. Charlie, Chelsea.
Have you ever heard Sarmiento have an interview or do an interview? He was brought up in London, so he's got the thickest London accent. And when you think Jeremy Sarmiento, you think he's going to have a foreign accent, but he's a proper London boy. Anyway, Chelsea, I've gone for a left-footed centre-half. He's played for Lee Carsley's under-21s in the England team. He was on loan at Swansea last season, done really well there. I think he's had a previous loan in Germany, Paderborn. And it's Bashir Humphreys. Like I said, he's come through the Chelsea Academy, and you've got to be a pretty good player to come through that academy. We saw how good Mark Gay was at the Euros. And I think profile-wise, I know Tikvik has come in, but that left-footed centre-half, I think this kid would be absolutely perfect for us. Can play out the back really, really well. His stats out at the highest are kind of his progression, his carries, which is quite rare. We haven't seen it. I know Porto might like to give it a go on the occasion, but he can really run out with the ball and kind of build up attack. And I think that's going to be crucial in what Cleverley wants to do. He needs defenders who are good on the ball, who can play out, because it looks like the patterns that we're trying to play are quite encouraging. So, I think he would be an excellent signing for us. Bashir Humphreys. I can't remember the last Chelsea loan signing we've had. Again, one for the comments. But
that is Nathan Ake?
Nathan
Ake? Kennedy, maybe.
Kennedy.
I mean, Alf, we should just start naming random Watford loan players. So Ake, Chalobah the first time. The one that this might be hopefully did Jack Cork.
I was about to say that, yeah.
On loan from Chelsea. Surely there was another one. Let us know, Chelsea loanees. Also, if there's any loanees from like the biggest clubs like United, I mean, Ben Foster's obviously the obvious one, but any United loanees, let us know, Liverpool, etc. We move on to Crystal Palace. One that I really want to see happen, I have to say, lads, I was putting this one together. Crystal Palace, someone that Sam's mentioned before, Jessurun Rak-Saki. On Transfermarkt, they valued him at £2 million. Right winger, left winger, can play through the middle. Had that loan at Charlton where, as Roy Keane would say, Michael Richards burst onto the scene. Not burst onto the scene. Yeah, he burst onto the scene. And I think a lot of people then start to take notice about how good this guy actually is. And from what I was reading, it'd be one that clubs are interested. They're sniffing around potentially about a loan deal. And I think also when you go back to what formation Watford will be playing next season, a 3-4-2-1 or a 3-4-1-2, you think of Rak-Saki, who can either play as that 10 or he can play as the two wide areas as well. So I think for me, he's one that out of all the ones I mentioned today, Ethan Nweri and then Rak-Saki, they're the two so far that I'm like, you know what, get them in, Gino, please.
I saw Southampton trying to get him, which shows how good of a player he'd be. Obviously, they've just gone up to the Premier League.
No, that's burst my bubble a little bit. I don't think he's coming now. Sam, Everton.
Yeah, I've changed this one earlier today. So the name I originally had down was Tim Iribunum, I think is how to say it. However, so he's a central midfielder. However, with Onana's exit today confirmed to Aston Villa, I think there's a chance they're going to keep hold of him. So the name I've gone for is their backup goalkeeper, João Virginia, I think is how to say it. He's a 24-year-old who played 3 times last season for them in the FA Cup, keeping 2 clean sheets. He's previously gone out on loan to Cambuur, I think, who are a Dutch team in the 22-23 season, and also has EFL experience back at Reading, I think, in 2019. I think Watford need a goalkeeper, to be honest with you, someone who can really push Daniel Bachmann. In fact, I think if Virginia came in, he would probably start over Bachmann. He's young for a goalkeeper at 24 years old. And if Everton can sign a backup goalkeeper, it wouldn't shock me if they look to send Virginia out on loan as well. The other name I wanted to give as well, who's not really linked to Everton at this point, but Dele Alli got released by Everton in the summer. And I would not mind if the wages were good, take a punt on him, to be honest with you, because a club's going to have to gamble on him if he's going to get his career back on track. And I'd love it if it was Watford.
This is the top line of this video. Would you take a gamble on Dele Alli? Would you take Dele Alli at Watford? That is the question for the live chat, Charlie.
Imagine saying that 5 years ago. Like, wow, what a player if he could be. Like, if we can get him back on track.
Well, a lot of people say, right, that he was Bellingham before Bellingham in terms of like that rise. And I actually think, I don't know, I have to say the way Dele Alli played the game when he was breaking through, I can't remember many players like doing what he was doing at that age and the way he was doing it. But it isn't that Dele Alli, Charlie. And it's a Dele Alli who's had a lot of injuries, who's had a lot of stuff going on in his life. And when you put all that together and he was offered to you, would you take a chance on him? Because I have to say I would.
Probably not, you know. Where would he play? As like one of the 2 10s? I just think it's a big gamble. I know Gino likes a gamble, and maybe. But again, I'm still scarred from like Danny Rose, Sissoko. Like apart from Capoue, all of our Tottenham business has not been great. Like Dele Alli was
Gomez.
that was before Capoue.
Yeah. Well, I think saying just generally the Tottenham.
No, I'm saying since Capoue.
Oh, right, since Capoue. Yeah.
You know what, Sam? I'm going to have to pull you up on that as well. I think he was a free agent at the time for Elliot Gomez, so I don't know if no, I mean, his last club was Tottenham before. I mean, if you're going to throw out Spurs, Watford played Danny Rose, it wasn't great. Sissoko, any others that are jumping out? I'm just trying to think. Yunus Kabul.
Good shout. He was all right.
He was okay. But anyway, not Capoue level is what we're saying. Sorry, Charlie. So you're saying you wouldn't take Dele Alli?
He's obviously a talented player. I don't know. Like, I just think his wages will be too high from what he wants, really. He went out to Turkey, didn't he? He would have been, I reckon Everton would have paid him like around 100 grand. So I don't know. I might be wrong, but it'd be great to see him just resurrect his career in any form. Seems like a really good lad, full of talent. So we'll see. I wouldn't mind it. Wouldn't hate it. I'll be there for the redemption arc. I'll be backing him, but just seems like a risk. An interesting comment about Chermiti. I don't know if he's been linked, or I saw it. He scored a couple for Everton in the friendly recently, but he's a profile of a striker that we definitely need.
I think Chermiti, I feel like that's probably out of our reach, maybe a little bit. But I think on Dele Alli, maybe he is as well. I guess, and we don't like bringing Luton up on the podcast, but one thing you learned from the Ross Barkley signing was if you can get a player who maybe isn't at the peak of their career and get them feeling loved and get them playing their best football again, you can get a lot out of a player like that. And now Barkley's off to Villa and looks to be on his way. So, yeah, look, what I would say about Dele Alli, I think it's unlikely. Would I take him? Absolutely, if it made sense for the club. We all know the situation financially. We're not blessed with a lot of cash at this moment in time. But if it was a free agent and it was a good deal for us, then I would not say no. We move on to the next club, and it is Fulham. Charlie, who your dad's got a strong connection to. Has he been tipping you off some players or?
No, I haven't messaged him, but have you seen, apparently, I don't know if it's true. Obviously, Jay Stansfield's probably the obvious one. Apparently, Birmingham have put in a 5 million bid for him or something like that. I think they've already spent 10 million this summer, so League One's going to be fun.
What have you done to the world?
This signing, if we pulled it off, I think would be absolutely genius. He's 33 years old. He's a centre midfielder. I'd have him over Kayembe and Loser, left-footed. He's only got 1 year on his contract. He's been the Fulham captain for a couple of years now. He's had 3 championship promotions under his belt. He's been in 2 championship team of the year. And last season, he even started 14 games in the Premier League, and he played in 34 games. Tom Kearney. He's a bit of a character. You've probably seen him on Soccer Saturday, or I think he's done the podcast with, is it Mikel Antonio? But I know he's 33. It depends who Fulham bring in, and it might be a bit too unrealistic. But if he wanted to have guaranteed game times, he would bring that leadership. I don't know if you guys agree. I think he'd be better than Kayembe Loser. He's got a lovely left foot. I think he's just the right kind of character we need, and I think it'd be an unbelievable signing. It might be a bit too out of reach, but I went for it.
Captain.
Yeah, I think so.
Captain. If we signed him, again, might be a bit out of reach, but he'd be captain, I reckon, as well.
Mate, honestly, I mean, I'd go as far as to say that's a signing, right, where, at the moment I'm thinking bottom half. I'm thinking, you know what? That tastes like promotion if we sign Tom Kearney. What I would say is, though, do you know what the one... I actually thought the way you were teeing it up, Charlie, you were going to go Tim Ream.
No, he's an absolute donkey. I would not go near him.
I think Pep Guardiola said years ago that if Tim Ream was 10 years younger, he would have loved to sign him at Man City. It's a fun fact of the day for you.
Who just thought of that one, Sam?
I think Guardiola said it himself.
Really?
Yeah.
Someone get the receipts. That'd be fascinating.
Okay, we move on to Ipswich, which is one of my shouts, and a man that I think a lot of our viewers would have heard the name before. and he joined Ipswich from AFC Wimbledon. So the reason I'm leading into this one, Ali Al-Hamidi, is because I don't know how much game time he's going to get in the Premier League. And granted, I think they'll probably look at him and go, you know what, he's a different option off the bench. We'll bring him on as a bit of a target man to sort of rough a few back lines up. I don't think he's going to start for Ipswich, especially after they signed Liam Delap from Manchester City as well, who I think will probably be starting for them.
They're linked with Sammy Smodics as well.
Sammy Smodics. So when you think of that, and you think of sort of the fact that, let's be honest, Al-Hamidi hasn't really proven himself at championship level yet. It's early doors. You know, I think he had a great season at Wimbledon, the top striker in League Two. I think there was always going to be a championship club that went in for him. He kind of was blocked his pathway due to Kiefer Moore having a good season at Ipswich as well. Could that just be one to keep an eye on, whether he goes to Watford? But I think I wouldn't be surprised if he made a move to a championship club on loan, whether it's this summer or in the January transfer window as well. We all know he's a centre forward who has an eye for a goal. And yeah, I think he's got a great record as well. I mean, granted in League Two, it was 42 games, 23 goals, 7 assists. In the Championship at Ipswich, he had 14 games, 4 goals, 1 assist. Just one to maybe throw out on the radar. A shout out to Ian, who says lots of comments in the chat. So how about a few more likes? Really do appreciate that, Ian. Let's have a few comments. We're about halfway through our list and we'll crack on with a few more. Rio says Sam's right, to be fair, on the Tim Ream shout. What a man. We had Jake says, I want Dan's from Liverpool. Wonder if the lads have picked Dan's as their shout. Luan says we're one of the worst teams in the league. Would be mad to turn down Dele Alli. Charlie Bush, we love an ex-Spurs. Rose, Gomez, Capu, Kabul, and now Dele, ? We'll have to wait and see. Okay, on to the next name. So Ali Al-Hamidi was my shout for Ipswich. Sam, your shout for Leicester.
Yeah, he's a player who I didn't know too much about up until last season when I was reading, when Leicester had their mid-season slump and they were all complaining Maresca was terrible, and particularly 2 players who were getting a lot of the heat were Kelechi Iheanacho and Patson Daka. And the reason for that was a lot of people wanted to see Tom Cannon playing for them. So I've gone with Tom Cannon because I can't imagine in the Premier League. He only played 16 times last season. He's only played 16 games for Leicester since joining in 2023. I can't imagine he's going to get too many more now in the Premier League. He came through at Everton before going to Preston on loan in 2023. In January of 2023, and playing 21 times in the second half of the season. He scored 8 goals. So that's what I can't really do the maths there, but a goal every 3 or 4 games or something like that. So yeah, I think as a player who seemingly a lot of Leicester fans rated, who I don't think will get many minutes in the Premier League, proven in the Championship before, I think it would be a good one to take a punt on.
Nice shout. Charlie, Liverpool. We've had Jayden Danns mentions.
We have had Jayden Danns mentioned. Yeah, I mean, when we did the video 5 players earlier on, just at the start of the window, I mentioned Owen Beck as that left back. I still think he would be an amazing left back. He would be at top of my list, but I did want to mix it up. Liverpool have got some unbelievable youngsters on their books. Tyler Morton, he was playing at Hull last season. He's now getting linked to RB Leipzig. He's probably out of our reach. Bobby Clark's a midfielder. They've got this young lad who looks really, really good called Trey Nonny as well. They've got Ben Doak, who's like a lightning rapid Scottish winger. But yeah, I have gone for Jayden Danns. I tweeted about him ages ago, I think last season, just because when I watched him on a couple of occasions, he looks so good for his age. It's still only 18, so I think out of all the names that we've mentioned, he's probably the youngest, although he might look one of the oldest. He scored 5 goals in 3 FA Youth Cup games last season, 9 in 9 under-18s Premier League. He scored 2 goals in his FA Cup appearance that he played Liverpool. I don't know if anyone saw one of the finish, a really, really nice chip when he ran in 1-on-1. He's made his Premier League debut. He played in the League Cup final when Liverpool were kind of against Chelsea and had all those injuries. He is the most similar player. I know there might be another player that we compare, but he is a Harry Kane regen. Like, he's big, physical, the way he finishes, the way he uses his body, mobile, great finisher, can do both feet. I don't know if anyone knows his dad, Neil Danns. He used to play for like Crystal Palace. He's a coach now. But yeah, I actually saw him linked today. I saw previously he was linked to Birmingham and Huddersfield, which was in League One, and I think he's got enough to be Championship. And then I saw today he was linked with Plymouth. Wayne Rooney's Plymouth. But yeah, I mean, I reckon he's better than Rajovic and Bayo 100%. I know he's only 18, but I think he's got a big future. Liverpool fans are really excited. A year in the Championship would do him no harm. So yeah, Jayden Downs, whoever gets him, I think they've got a bit of a winner there.
Yeah, I like that one. I think you're totally right there, Charlie, in terms of him being an upgrade on what we have at the moment. I also thought it was interesting at the Gillingham game, the fact that Cleverley went with a front two of Vata and Bar over Rajovic and Bayo. Sam?
Yeah, it's a signal, I think. I think he's crying out for a striker, Tom Cleverley. Albeit pre-season is an opportunity to try things out. Going back to the Gillingham game, something I just remembered, which I should have mentioned at the top of the show, quick interlude here. But before the game, the Gillingham Stadium announcer said that Watford were set to make, I think, 10 changes at half-time or something like that, and read out our second half team. Interestingly, we made no changes at half-time. So I wonder if there was a change of mind from Tom Cleverley there, wanting to see a bit more from the players before making more changes on, what was it, 60 or 70 minutes. So it seemed that Tom Cleverley changed his mind with the subs that he was going to make for the Gillingham game.
Yeah,
interesting. He said in the interview with the club that he made a tactical tweak which didn't go well, and he takes the blame for that one for the second half. I think he said.
Yeah, could be. I think he's crying out for a striker. It sort of reminded me a bit of when, God, I can't even remember now because we've had so many managers. I think it was under Rob Edwards when we either didn't have a right back or a left back, so he played the other, like Ngakia, like left wing back, who coincidentally played there the other day and was actually really good at left wing back. It was something like that.
Kamara, wasn't it? Was Kamara playing right wing back?
That was the one, and it was clearly him trying to make a point to the board, and I think Tom Cleverley's doing the same here.
Do you know what? Just on Clevs, I know, again, it's digressing. He's in a really difficult position, Cleverley, because it is his first job. He is only 34, and it's a club that is the most important to him. And out of all the teams in his career, he always says Watford is his club. He's got a really difficult balancing act in terms of wanting the best for the team, but also not disrespecting Gino because he's given him that first opportunity. And the last thing he wants to do is maybe ruffle his feathers when he probably didn't expect to get the job in the first place. But do you know what I mean? It's like he's gone into a job that he's having to balance a lot of different moving parts here. He's got the fans that are wanting more. The owner knows that he hasn't got a lot of maybe cash as he did before in the background. They can't go massive in the transfer market, but he knows he needs upgrades. So he needs to basically tell Gino he needs upgrades, but also whilst not pissing him off. And it's just a difficult balancing act for him is my point with Tom Cleverley, especially in his first job in managerial football. And I think there's a lot to be said about Watford as a job, because I think there's so many moving parts that you have to consider maybe compared to other jobs. You know, I think
this pre-season and this first half is going to be the biggest learning curve he's had in his whole football career. What he's going to have to deal with, not just coaching a team, but it's the management. It's going to be mad. If he lasts the season, he would have done an unbelievable job with the current squad that we've got.
Yeah. But he can be helped out by some of our signings. And my man for Manchester City, I've got two shouts actually. The one that I think's probably out of our reach, but I liked it. Micah Hamilton, again, another name that we mentioned before on this channel, can play across the left, can play across the right, can play attacking midfield. Again, another one like Raksui who fits the bill for the way Tom Cleverley wants to play this season. Young, energetic. I think he's crying out for a low move as well, whether that's the Championship team or, you know, a different level. The other one I wanted to throw on the radar was Thomas Galvez, who actually was in the Watford Academy for a long time. He has played for Finland. He's a left back, and I do think we need a left back, and he's got the energy to play as a left wing back as well. I just think he's someone that obviously, actually, funnily enough, Armin Kavaya would have worked with in the youth setup at Watford. He's another player that has been nabbed from one of the bigger teams. But if you could get him on a loan, I think that, because there's the existing relationship there, then I'd definitely look to explore that. That's Manchester City done. We move on, Sam, to Manchester United.
I think the name I've got here is a name that Watford fans have mentioned, and I also think it's probably the most realistic on my list. Again, it might be a player who I think Armin Kavaya might have worked with before. and that is the left back, Harry Amas. Obviously left Watford a year or two ago, having been really, really highly rated in the under-18s and maybe briefly in the under-21s as well, before getting that move to Man United, where he's made a few appearances on the first team bench before starting some games this pre-season. And I know you can't really say a lot off a highlight reel, and I'm trying not to get sucked in here, but I did watch some of his highlights from their game against Rangers the other day, and he looked exactly what we need at the moment in terms of the way Tom Cleverley wants with his fullbacks getting high. Whenever he released the ball, his first aim was run forward as quickly as possible and try and create as much space out wide to free up the central midfielders. And I think it would suit Watford absolutely perfectly. I think it would suit Harry Amas perfectly, because if he came to Watford now, he'd get regular first team football. And I think it would suit Manchester United as well, because ultimately we'd be developing their player. I think it makes sense for all parties, and I think it would be the perfect move for everyone.
Do you know what? I spoke to a couple of United fans, Sam, about Harry Amas, and from what the sort of rumours are coming out of the club, they really do see him as sort of the next Luke Shaw for them in terms of being like the mainstay in the team. There were points made about technically really, really good, is only 16. Maybe needs to bulk up a little bit in terms of maybe physically, just to make sure he's, especially when you go into the adult game as well. But I think that everyone said technically he's a top player and one to definitely look out for. I have to say, I was pretty gutted when he left Watford, because I felt that there was a pathway for him to become, our left back. But that is just unfortunately the price we pay for having a decent academy, and bigger clubs coming in and taking them. We move on. Charlie.
Sorry, there was just one more. Chris Baker tweeted us a really, really good shout. A young centre midfielder called Toby Culshaw, who is really, really highly rated at United. I know we've got loads of centre midfielders, but I've heard big things about him, especially like him kind of getting the nod over someone like Amrabat this season. But I think defensive midfielder, and I just like that idea of kind of cleverly bringing in a centre midfielder, United loanee to Watford to make him thrive. But I thought that was a really good shout from Chris Baker, so I just wanted to give it a shout.
Yeah, like it. Newcastle, Charlie?
Newcastle. I was going to go for Jamal Lewis, but he done his ACL at the back end of last season, and I just thought, I don't know if many people know, but QPR got in Chris Cook last season, and he literally apparently was their player of the season. He did such a good job for them, and I just thought that kind of experience would really, really help us. Again, kind of looking at what Jake Livermore did for us last season. So this isn't the sexiest shout, but I did want to go with some experience. He's a 29-year-old right back, kind of versatile defender. I do see him as more of a centre back if he were to play for us. He did play 17 times in the Premier League last season. Decent tackler. He's actually quite good going forward. Emil Kraft, Swedish international. He reminds me a bit of who did we have on loan a couple of years? I don't know if it's from Newcastle. Oh, who was it? Someone in the comments saved me, but we had like a similar kind of profile come on loan. I think it was during the promotion season, from the
Carlos
Premier League.
Sanchez.
What? Akraf Lazar?
Yeah, was he from Newcastle?
Well, that was his last club, but he was a free agent, I think.
Oh, right.
He was terrible, wasn't
he? I don't know if it was him. There was another player. It might have been Lazar, but I'll have to dig it out. But again, not the sexiest, but a kind of that experience has come in. He's obviously got a good body of work behind him. He's still playing for Sweden. He's still playing in the Premier League. So the problem is Newcastle. Martin Navarro, he didn't come on loan, did he? But that kind of player. Sorry.
Hold on, mate.
I might be chatting absolute breeze, to be honest. But
can you see that?
Yeah, it must have been this geezer. What are you saying? He was rubbish. He got us promoted, didn't he?
No, you're thinking Carlos Sanchez. Ashraf Lazar, we played Luton away, I think it was, and he had a terrible pass back to Daniel Bachmann, probably one of the worst back passes you'll ever see, which caused Bachmann to give away a penalty, and I think we lost 1 or 2-0. But it was terrible, Lazar. I think you're thinking of Carlos Sanchez, Charlie, who came in and was really good for us.
Lazar, mate, please don't forget. But with Newcastle, I don't know what's going on up there, but I just see Lloyd Kelly, who they've just signed, has had a bad injury, so they're not going to let any players go because they can't bring in any players for PSR and stuff like that. But bigger brings sexy Swede Emil Kraft to the Vic.
There we go. Okay. Oh, was it? This is a good shout. Was it Albert Riera?
No, but he's a really interesting coach. I think he's still in.
Oh, I've just set Charlie off here.
No, sorry. No.
Well done,
I think it was. I think it was Zazzera, to be honest. But yeah, just that average player that we bring in.
Any chance for Charlie to mention a young, progressive, ball-playing manager? His eyes light up. We move on from Newcastle. We go on on the grass. Nottingham Forest. Do you know what? There was actually one that I thought made a lot of sense, and it was Harry Toffolo.
Emmanuel Dennis.
Oh, yeah, round three. I've gone for Harry Toffolo. I feel like left back, left wing back is a spot that we need. He can play left back, can play left midfield as well. Harry Toffolo. A lot of people remember him for his spell at Huddersfield, where he was really good. I thought over a couple of seasons for them. Went to Nottingham Forest. Probably, I mean, has played quite a bit for them, but whether we can maybe just see if we can get a deal there. It was just probably the one I looked at and thought he'd be a top championship player, I think, for us. Whether he fits in the system that the club he wants to play as a wing back, I don't know. But I thought that was probably the main shout for me. Harry Toffolo from Nottingham Forest, unless we want to do Emmanuel Dennis for the third and final time. Sam, on the other hand, Southampton.
Yeah, a player who I think will almost certainly go out on loan this season is Ross Stewart. A really, really good proven championship player, EFL player at Sunderland across League One and League Two. He scored a goal every 2 games there. And before making that move to Southampton last summer, after 4 games, 3 or 4 games, he tore his ACL and didn't play again throughout the whole season. So I think it's unlikely that he'll be given that opportunity in the Premier League. I think he'll be given some time out on loan, or even they might sell him just to rediscover his form. And we know how difficult it is to get back from ACL injuries. I wouldn't rule out a return to Sunderland, but I think Championship clubs will be interested, and he's a proven goal scorer. It's exactly what Watford need, and I wouldn't be against that at all. I think it would be a brilliant signing.
Tottenham, Charlie?
Yeah, Tottenham's a good one. They have also got a centre half called Ashley Phillips, who was on loan at Plymouth last season. I think he'd be a good option for us again. But yeah, Tottenham, this guy's just been in my timeline, or the algorithm's been pushing him forward for a long time. I was looking at him when we were doing our 5 players Watford should sign, and I went with Callum Marshall of West Ham. Sorry if that was a spoiler, but went with Callum Marshall from West Ham just because he went on loan to West Brom last season. So, but this lad last season, he got the Premier League 2 Player of the Season, scored 30 goals in 41 games for Spurs under 21s. Will Lancashire, he's literally burst on the scene this pre-season, scored against Hearts for the first team. Spurs have just gone on their tour. He's been called up to the tour because Anne just said he's been the best striker that they've got so far. He's only 19, but physically he's an absolute unit. I think one of his best skills, which you don't really see in players nowadays, yet alone young players, is his ability to use his body and pin defenders. The minute he looks to receive the ball, he's got his defender and he turns, and he's got a really, really nice finish on him as well. And his movement is fantastic, really intelligent movement kind of in the build-up and when the ball's out wide. Watford need a goal scorer. All I want from this pre-season is someone who knows how to score. This lad is exactly that. So it's annoying he's gone on tour, but I think we're going to have to wait until the last 2 weeks of the window to see who's available. But this lad, from going from absolutely nowhere, maybe looking for more of a League One loan, I think he's definitely good enough now to play for a Championship loan. And I think Watford could be a good destination for him to kick on. So Will Lancashire, I think he's got a big future.
Will Lancashire, a lot of people said he had a similar style to Harry Kane as well. I'm not saying he's on the same level. People said he had a very similar sort of like gait and sort of finishing technique to him. I think it was Lou On said that. So yeah, I like that shout. And Louis Glenn said Lancashire is a football manager legend for me. Rio, yeah, Harry Kane-esque in that respect. Okay, we move on to the next one. Last 2. So that was Charlie's last shout. I know Charlie's going to be gutted. It's another year over for him. Over and out.
January.
West Ham and Wolves. Hey. One signing that won't be joining Watford. Yeah. So two names from me for West Ham. So Charlie mentioned one of them there. Callum Marshall is probably the obvious one in terms of a goal scorer, centre forward, a man who was on loan at West Brom last season. Didn't play that much. He only played 3 games, so maybe it might be a little bit of a gamble. It's similar to Lancashire in the sense of his record in not only the under-18 Premier League, but the Premier League too is very good. In that Premier League too, he scored 17 goals in 22 games. I think in terms of a striker, it's a priority for us. So I'd be open to that one. As I say, I think basically the question is he better than what we've got? And I think he probably is. The other name I wanted to throw out there is George Earthy, who is more of an attacking midfielder, someone who I know is really highly rated at West Ham, hasn't had a loan out of West Ham yet. Again, another one who's played a lot of under-18 Premier League football, a lot of Premier League 2 football, but 10 goals and 12 assists in the Premier League 2 as well, which is something to keep an eye on. But I think when you look at him and you think of what he could potentially offer for Watford, he's one to mention. 19 years of age, attacking midfielder. So it was Callum Marshall as a striker and then George Earthy as the attacking midfielder. Sam, to bring us home.
So can I just throw in a third one from West Ham?
Go on, mate.
Sorry. Oliver Scarles. He's a left back. Really, really exciting left back for West Ham. He's kind of out of nowhere, but I've heard he's highly rated from my mates who are West Ham fans. I think he's played a bit friendlies and stuff with the first team recently, but we need a left back as well, don't we? So Oliver Scarles is a name to look out for. Sorry, Sam.
He also, by the way, George Earthy scored against Luton last season, as Jack says, so would fit him well. Sam, bring us home. Wolverhampton Wanderers.
What a man. Again, like I said earlier in the stream, I think there are some clubs who are a bit limited with their squads in terms of the business that they can do at the moment, which made it quite difficult with Wolves. But one area that I noticed they're quite stacked in at the moment is at right back. The main competition comes from Nelson Semedo and Matt Doherty, which leaves 2 players. One of them, which I think is slightly more unlikely, is Kiana Hovier, I think is how to say it. I'm not too sure. Who spent last season and I think a bit of the year before as well at Stoke, playing 44 times and 17 times in the previous season as well, scoring 8 goals for them. So for a defensive player, he's got clearly an eye for a goal. Just reading up on him, Stoke fans were quite impressed by him, but they did see his limitations as well. I think particularly in terms of his positioning at times was a bit suspect, but he's also quite versatile. I think he can play at left back, can play at right wing back as well, and I think he might have played at centre back a couple of times. And the other name I had was Pedro Lima, an 18-year-old right back. To be honest with you, I don't know too much about him, but he's played for the Brazil under-17s, scored 2 goals from right back for them. And I think it would provide good cover for Ryan Andrews, considering we know Jeremy Ngakia is a bit injury prone. So I've gone with 2 names from Wolves, which are Pedro Lima and Kiana Hovier.
Love it. There was another name mentioned from Sam L in the comments section. Luke Cundle was on loan. Stoke and Plymouth seems like a solid addition for our midfield. I wanted to wrap it up though, lads, and thanks so much to everyone who watched today and listened. And let us know any shouts that you have. Tag us at WD18 fans, and we'll retweet as many as possible. Suggestions for one realistic loan signing for Watford from every Premier League club. You don't need to do every Premier League club, but anyone you think that stands out. One transfer prediction, lads, this summer. So Hacker, Matt Doherty for Watford seems fated. And I have to say, I can see it. So people have said Dele Alli, people have said Matt Doherty. Give us a prediction. Let us know in the comment section to wrap up today. Thanks so much to Jack. Thanks so much to Big Man Louis for some lovely comments in there. Thanks so much to everyone who watched. Sam, Charlie, have you got any predictions for me? Doesn't have to be names. Can just be something that's going to happen. Can be something random, like how they're going to wear the armbands. Sam mentioned Matt.
I'll make my prediction. This might sound pessimistic. I mean, it is pessimistic. I don't think we're going to sign someone that will necessarily get fans excited immediately. I think we're either going to sign really experienced players or we're going to sign really young players, almost unknown entities like Rocco Vata, or quite experienced players like Moussa Sissoko. I think we're going to see that theme throughout the window.
I've got a prediction.
Go on.
One of the names that we've mentioned today, Watford will sign.
I like that.
Have we got a favourite?
Throw enough, poop, something will stick, eh?
Who was there? Was there one name you thought, Charlie, that you thought, you know what, I could see it?
Oh, we done this last time and I totally forget who. Someone said a really good left back, I think.
Who, Tom Galvez?
Yeah, Tom Galvez. I thought was a great shout for City. He's been training with the first team as well. You've seen him in the winning pictures. But yeah, like I said, I shouted it out at the time. But that Man United player, Toby Collier, Chris Baker, sent us a tweet. And thanks to everyone who tweeted sending those in. We know it's a bit of fun. Hopefully we'll get one of these right one day. And then we can give it the big one.
Few predictions in the live chat. Just to wrap up, Rio says we'll sign either Paul Dummett or Matt Ritchie. DT official, the return of Britt Asamoah. Billy says Trevor Chalobah, mate. I appreciate the optimism. Big man Louis, Ashley Young on loan. Could that be one?
He just signed a year extension at, where is he? Is it Everton? So I don't think at 36 years old, I'm not sure if they'll let him go out on loan, considering he just signed a 1-year deal.
There is actually a third Chalobah brother, Paul Chalobah. We'll probably get him in.
I was going to say Chalobah round 3, but he's on to Sheffield Wednesday. Jesse Lingard, Iboui from Palace.
I think he's gone to Derby, maybe. I might be wrong.
One prediction from Samuel, lose a contract extension.
Can we just go one stream? Like, just one stream, please, I beg. It used to be, like, for long-time viewers, it used to be Etienne Capoue, because I loved him. And every single stream, someone would bring him up and I'd get a bit emotional. And to be fair to Loser, I don't think he's been amazing at all, but he has looked quite up for it in the preseason games. Quality on the ball hasn't been good, but he has looked a bit lively. So, yeah.
That is the bar rat now. Let's up for it.
You know what? And Samuel, this is a nice comment to wrap up on. Cleverly making use of youth like Greaves and Ramirez, Spain, will feel like Ramirez of Spain, will feel like new signings this season, as well as our returning loanees like Shackford and Barr. That's a nice comment to wrap up on, because Jake said, let's be real, we won't bring in any of these. So, there was one comment to wrap up on. Well, Jake's basically just told us, lads, we've just wasted an hour of our life.
Actually, something that we ended on when me and Charlie recorded last week, Jacob. I think it should be a new tradition with how almost negative some things are. Let's all say one thing that we're excited about for Watford this season, or over the next week or so.
What am I excited for the next week or the season?
Over the next week, over the next season, something positive. I think we should end every video this way.
Okay, I'd say short term, in the next week of Watford's, I think Charlie hit the nail on the head. That Rocco Batter chant at Hibernian will be lovely. Long term, I'm going to go with having a pint with you boys. What a nice way to go. That would be nice.
Who got their Millwall tickets today?
Mate, I swear the site crashed.
Yeah, the new website.
New website. Oh, goodness me. We're back.
Charlie, what are you excited for?
Go on.
Yeah, I think Rocco Batter did look so lively, didn't he? He looked like a box of tricks. So if I don't see a video being tweeted from Hibs of people singing that chant, I'll be very disappointed. I'm excited for, I know it's an early kickoff, isn't it? The first game, Millwall. So yeah, getting into London early, a crisp pint. Hopefully it's a warm day. Head into the Lions' Den, and then we'll see what happens in the 90 minutes. But that moment, that anticipation before we kick off, that is going to be glorious.
Sam, boat pre-match.
Yeah, but I booked my boat ticket for the Millwall game. I think it leaves like 9 a.m. before a 12:30 kickoff. So, it's going to be a messy day. Charlie took the words out of my mouth there. I'm buzzing. I'm really excited for Rocco Batter. I really like what I've seen so far in pre-season. I think, he's a player who he seems really, really raw, but really exciting. So I'm going to go with Rocco Batter as the name I'm excited for. And let us know in the comments, because we know we've seen on socials, like, things are a bit doom and gloom at the moment, of course. New season. Let's try and stay a bit optimistic if we
Agreed.
can.
A ball hasn't been kicked yet. Well, a championship ball hasn't been kicked yet. So a long way to go. A long season ahead for the 24-25 season. Make sure you do follow us here on WD18. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any Watford fan content. If you could leave a like on the way out, it'd be massively appreciated. Subscribe to WD18. Follow Sam, Charlie, and myself on our social channels, and WD18 at WD18 fans. Hope you have a great time. If you're going to Hibernian, make sure you say hello to Sam if you're up there, and we will see you in the next one. Good night, take care, and up the audits. You want.